So this meditation was originally shared with students and graduates of the Mindfulness Now Programme on Monday the 6th of July 2020. And it's simply a meditation on the idea of trust, which is one of the main attitudes of mindfulness. And when I was talking about delivering this mindfulness meditation, I was talking with my colleague Tony, who works in London, and it reminded me of my time as a teacher, when we used to have the house point jars with the little coloured glass gems or the colourful marbles to visually explain wanted behaviour and achievements. So whenever the children behaved in a positive or productive way, gems or marbles were deposited into the jar. And in a way, I've been thinking that you can think about trust in a similar kind of way, as marbles going into the jar or coming out of the jar. And intriguingly, in this way, trust becomes a never-ending process rather than an end in itself. So I don't know whether you might just like to be contemplating that while you begin to be aware of how you're feeling right now in your experience. Perhaps bringing a gentle awareness to your breathing, making sure you're nice and comfortable, becoming more aware of how your body is feeling. Perhaps you might be aware of sounds that you can hear or smells that might be around you. Just allowing your awareness to rest wherever it chooses to rest. And perhaps beginning to feel a stillness. Perhaps you've come from a very busy day with all the hustle and bustle, and it kind of feels a little bit like being in the eye of a storm to begin with, but you can begin to look out from this stillness and remind yourself that that's okay. So just bringing your thinking back to the idea of trust. Marbles into the jar, marbles out of the jar. And so there are friendships that grow trust and confidence with marble deposits, such as keeping confidences or remembering important events, being able to read our feelings, friends who check in on us when things seem a bit off or just for the sake of it. And then our friendship jar is filled with colourful deposits that enable us to be vulnerable, to trust, to show up as our authentic selves in a friendship or a relationship. And in the same way, small events can remove those same marbles, perhaps being late for a coffee, forgetting something important, not replying to an email. They can all be marble removers, can't they? So again, bringing your awareness back to your breathing, each in-breath, each out-breath. And noticing too that your breathing is a continual process. Breathing in, breathing out. And then bringing your thoughts back to that idea of trust again. And that there are obviously situations that we can lose trust in. The current world situation might be one. Did that take a few marbles out of your jar of trust? Perhaps for some people it smashed it completely. On the other hand, it might have helped to restore your faith in human nature, as we shopped for our neighbours, collected a prescription for someone who was shielding, clapped for the NHS each Thursday evening, put rainbows up in our windows, and came together to work together in so many different ways. More marbles into the jar. And perhaps you now need a larger jar of trust. We can remember that every situation is an opportunity to understand the mind. I'm reminded of a lady that they interviewed last week on the news. She lived alone and had once suffered from acute anxiety. And then, when lockdown first took hold, she admitted she completely went to pieces, not thinking she could get through this without help. And 3 months in, she was a completely different person, oozing confidence, and feeling confident about lockdown being gradually eased too. Little by little, perhaps she'd filled up her own jar of trust with those little coloured marbles. Marble by marble. And sure enough, along the way she'd probably taken a few out too. But she kept going, trusting that she'd be okay. And in a way, that's all we can do. To trust in the gradually unfolding process, no matter what happens. Breath by breath, marble by marble. So just allowing yourself once again to fall into your body, just noticing each part of your body, whether it feels comfortable, whether there's any discomfort. Moving parts of your body if you want to, that's okay. Bringing an awareness to each of your senses, one by one. Perhaps one sense is more dominant than another. And then again, an awareness of your breathing. Each in-breath, each out-breath. Just letting go. And then bringing your mind back to your thinking again, and that idea of trust, that attitude of trust. And again, I'm reminded of another kind of a metaphor. This metaphor is called falling down, and it's adapted from a book called Wild Chickens and Petty Tyrants. You can get all of the details in the information below the video. But I'm wondering if you can remember the last time you witnessed a young toddler making an attempt at stringing a few steps together. There might have been a whole gamut of emotions playing out on their face. Joy, frustration, persistence, excitement, fascination, sadness, as they strode forward uneasily and fell. Perhaps they even showed delight in the actual process of falling and a boundless desire to get up and start all over again. This is a perfect metaphor for many of the attitudes of mindfulness. Beginner's mind, letting go, acceptance, non-judgment, and of course trust. There's an old Zen saying, fall down 7 times, get up 8. Perhaps we're back to those jars of marbles again. 7 marbles out, 8 back in. Back to that continual process. Through our mindful practice, we learn when we fall to pick ourselves up again without criticism, just as much as we can, without beating ourselves up for falling down in the first place. You might like to examine what happens the next time you take a stumble and fall. The next time perhaps that someone else doesn't live up to your expectations. The next time we get caught up in our own thinking. The next time a marble is taken out of the jar. Can you allow yourself to be compassionate with yourself? Can you allow yourself to be compassionate with others? Can you pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and carry on walking? Can you treat yourself as kindly as you would a toddler learning to walk? Can you do the same with others? This process of starting over again and again is what we do. It's what we do in life. It's what we do in our own mindfulness practice. In mindfulness, perhaps you fall down when you get engrossed in your own thinking, in your own judgments, in your own stories. And when you recognise this, you pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and start all over again. So again, bringing your awareness to your breathing. Just noticing your breathing as it happens. Bringing that same gentle awareness to how your body's feeling. Perhaps this time noticing the contact of your body with whatever it's in contact with, whether it's a chair or the floor or a bed. The contact of your clothes with your body. Perhaps noticing the air around it. And again, whether you feel comfortable and doing whatever you need to do in order to be a little bit more comfortable, if that's what you wish. Again, noticing your senses, what you can hear, what you can smell, perhaps any tastes. What can you see in your mind's eye? And what do you feel? Just allowing your awareness to rest wherever it chooses. Perhaps feeling more now that stillness within. And then once again bringing yourself back to that idea of trust. I'm just wondering if you can embrace the enthusiasm of a young child. Fall and laugh. Get up with determination, ready to fall again and again. Because in a way that's bound to happen. But there's no need to make falling into a problem. Trust that it's all part of the process. And there's no need to make getting up into an accolade. Just trust that it's all part of the process. Taking marbles out, putting them back in. Having trust. And so I'm just going to bring this meditation to a close with a quote. A quote from Goldie Hawn, who's a great advocate of mindfulness. And it goes like this. If we can just let go and trust that things will work out the way they're supposed to, without trying to control the outcome in any way, then we can begin to enjoy the moment more fully. The joy of the freedom it brings becomes more pleasurable than the experience itself. Thank you for listening.